if we could have the candidates start to take their seats. The candidates, please start to take your seats. Okay, Kara, you can go do your roundup. I think we're ready to go. Thank you for being so cooperative. Welcome to the Meet the Candidates event that's hosted by the Davis County League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters' mission is to engage citizens in their government by providing nonpartisan voter information. The League neither supports or opposes political parties or candidates for office, and we're thrilled to be invited to be a part of Kaysville's event. We have a team of League members here tonight. My name's Peggy Carrico, and I'm the moderator. Our timekeeper is Marie Fulmer, sitting right here, and she has some cards we'll show you in a minute, along with Ann Johnson, who will be video recording part of this for a moment. And then we can get the best quality of recording. We ask that everyone please silence your phones now. That includes this is a live broadcast event through the Kaysville website, Kaysville City website. So please silence your phones. You'll be able to, again, review this event and refer your family and friends who were unable to attend by visiting our Facebook page at League of Women Voters of Davis County or the Kaysville City website, which I did not get before sitting down, so we can find that out. Registered voters are able to vote in the primary on August 15th, as well as the general election on November 7th. If you are not registered to vote, if your name and address has changed, or if you want to change your party affiliation, you must again register by August 7th, either online or at vote.utah.gov or in person at the county clerk's office. We have registration forms available tonight, but they must be delivered in person to the county clerk's office by August 7th. August 15th primary is by mail only. You will vote for one candidate for mayor. Council candidates will participate tonight, but will not be on the primary ballot. Now to our candidates. They are seated alphabetically by ballot. Yes, they are set there. Yes. They are seated alphabetically by ballot, with the 3 mayoral candidates first and our 4 council candidates second. For mayor, Rustin Jessen, Lorene Milner-Kamalu, and Katie Witt. For city council, Michelle Barber, James Hansen, Susan Lee, and Randy Van Bossie. Your answers are timed, candidates. I will announce the time allotted for each question when they are asked. Marie will hold up the cards. Marie, if you can hold those up very quickly. You get a 30-second, a 15-second, a 10-second, and then a stop. So you kind of keep track of your time if you want to look at that quickly. The first person to respond to tonight's questions will rotate. So we'll start with Rustin Jessen tonight, and then we'll move to your left as we go by the questions. To generate the questions that we used tonight, we've invited each candidate and some of the city officials to provide us questions ahead of time. And then you're asked to also submit questions if you'd like. If you have if you raise your hand, we can get a card to you, and we have people that are rotating. They'll bring you a card to complete, and we'll put it in here. Wherever possible, we try to consolidate questions, so it may just be that your question fits within what we have, or we'll try to consolidate it into an appropriate question. And we may hold on to some of them for the final Meet the Candidates event in October, so that could happen as well. Thank you again for attending this evening, and now please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance that is led by Kara Crosby. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please hold any applause till the end of the evening. We want to have as much time to hear the candidates as possible. So our first question is a 2-minute question, and it starts with Rustin Jessen, and we want to have you tell us why you decided to run for office. Perhaps what your experience has been in working with Kaysville City before, the meetings you might have attended, and highlight your connection to Kaysville, your skills, your talents, and your experience, and some of the priorities you want to accomplish as mayor. And so this will, again, be 2 minutes, and when it comes to the council, obviously, what you want to establish as a council member. So we can start.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled and incredibly excited at the opportunity to even be considered to represent you here in City Hall. You go a lot of places in your life, but you only have one hometown, and Kaysville is my hometown. And I think the best way to illustrate the skills that I bring to the table are to let you know a little bit about what I do for a living. I operate from just across the street here on Main Street in Kaysville. I have a small advertising agency, and we focus specifically on family entertainment and family travel. For that, our clients are Disney parks, San Diego Zoo, and some of those large family entertainment venues. The other thing I do is large-scale event production. I'm kind of a guy in the entertainment industry that people call when they need many thousands of people to be a part of their event and operate on small budgets and small teams. In February, I finished my 11th Super Bowl halftime show. And if you know anything about the entertainment industry, you know it's really easy to get fired. Having done that show, the biggest show in the country for the last 11 years, is a badge of pride for me. We operate very efficiently with very small teams, and with that entertainment production company, we have clients including the NFL, Pepsi, Paramount Pictures, and some other big events, some other big companies that do those big events. The reason I tell you about that is I think that it illustrates that I'm very experienced in managing logistically diverse projects, managing large budgets, communicating with big groups of people, and bringing a lot of maybe disagreeing people together for an equitable and for an entertaining result, basically a positive result all around. The skills I bring to the table are well honed, they are industry proven, and they're what I use to operate in my business every single day. As I said, Kaysville is my hometown. It's a place that I love, and what I've seen on the city council, what I've seen in city operations is that we've got some mistrust and infighting that is overshadowing a lot of our city business. I would like to bring my skills in moderating, my skills in facilitating and communicating to improve a lot of that behavior, a lot of that stuff that's going on, and get the city business back in the forefront of what we're doing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you and for considering. I appreciate it very much.
Hold your applause, please.
My name is Laureen Kamalu. We have lived in Kaysville for 21 years. My husband and I moved here when he was serving in the Air Force, and he finished his commitment at Hill Air Force Base after 4 years, and we loved Kaysville so well, we decided to stay and raise our family here, always. So that was in 1996. I have been a stay-at-home mom with a very successful home business, and I have a business degree from Brigham Young University, and was able to put that to use working part-time and raising our children to be darts, which is a funny mascot. So fast forward to just 3.5 years ago, someone suggested that I consider running for city council, and I laughed. It was not anything I ever thought of doing, but the idea intrigued me, and so I did consider it by starting to attend all of the city council meetings, and that was in January of 2014. So I began attending, and at that point in time, there was a spot that opened up for a citizen planning commissioner. A lot of people don't realize what that is, but there's a whole team of planning commissioners who are appointed by the mayor, and they also serve the city of Kaysville. And so I put in an application, and I was appointed, and I've been serving, this is my 4th year as a citizen planning commissioner for Kaysville. And what I found out when I started serving is that my passion changed from business to public service. It was not anything I'd ever anticipated, but I have loved serving. And so I am running for mayor to provide some leadership and support. I have had a lot of leadership positions in my business and in the community, and I would love to apply that to be mayor of Kaysville. Priorities for me, our biggest issue in Kaysville right now are our roads. And it's not just road maintenance, but it is also the bridge where we are backing up. And now, just in the last while, the project for US 89 has become a huge issue. So those are some of the things I really want to work on.
Hello, my name is Katie Witt, and I have lived here in Kaysville for about 3 years. I was not born here, wasn't raised here, but I got here as soon as I could. So we chose Kaysville deliberately. It spoke to us. Just something that I love about Kaysville is that people who were born here, raised here, come back to raise their families. And that's the kind of town that I want to be part of. And so we chose Kaysville, love how it makes us feel. I have 4 years of council experience in another state. I'm the only candidate for mayor who has council experience. I think it's pretty important that if you're going to be leading the council, you understand how council works. I have a passion for local government. I didn't realize when I first ran for a city council how much I was going to love it, and how influential these people are. This is the government that touches your life the most. And so that's why we need the best people that we can find to serve on our city council. My priority, my #1 priority, is getting a strategic plan for our community. We need to be able to plan what Kaysville is going to look like in 10 years, 20 years. And in order to do that, we need citizen input, and businesses, schools, churches. We need to figure out what Kaysville is going to look like. And we need to start working now to make the changes we need in order to get to that point. My website is katieforkaysville.com. And I really appreciate your vote.
Good evening, my name is Michelle Barber, and I am grateful to be considered for Kaysville City Council. A little bit about me: I am a web designer by trade, an event planner also, and a mother by trade. I have been born and raised in Kaysville. I grew up in East Kaysville, and then I married a West Kaysvilleite, and we are what Katie describes as the Kaysville family who loves it enough that we are now raising our family here. My husband and I are passionate about our city, we're proud of our city, and we're excited to be part of shaping a wonderful place for our children to live and to be part of. Part of my career and my experience as a designer is I'm able to look at big problems from a high-level view, decide what we want to do, how we want to fix it, and work together to make the changes. I work with engineers on a daily basis. I'm an engineer myself. I know how to tackle difficult problems. I'm a technology evangelist, computer nerd, you can call me that as well. And I realize that importance that I need to bring to our city. We have problems we need to face, tackle straight on. I've been involved in Kaysville City, everything from organizing neighborhood watches to event planning and volunteering throughout the city. I've been really passionate about the changes that I wanted to see in our city, specifically with the unity that I feel needs to be brought to our Kaysville's political scene. One of my platforms is I want to make Kaysville's political scene more representative of the wonderful community that it serves. Because you go outside and you talk to your neighbors, Kaysville is a wonderful place to live. Has wonderful people, wonderful experiences about it. The political scene needs to represent that. And I know that I can bring unity, collaboration, and work together for those changes. I'm excited to focus on the development and business growth. My husband, growing up in West Kaysville, and I have seen a lot of growth and changes, and we know that Kaysville needs a strategy. We need a better plan, or else we'll end up somewhere we did not expect to be. And I'm excited to be part of that. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you here tonight. My name's James Hansen. I've been living in Kaysville for the last 4 years. I came here to start teaching up at Weber State University. I'm a professor of accounting. And I have to admit, facing you guys is a little bit more stressful than my normal class of students, because with them, I control their grades, and maybe that, no, I'm kidding. But we have a lot of fun. I love teaching. But I'm an accountant by trade. I'm a CPA. I love doing my budget as much as you might. Some of you don't like doing yours, but I think that's some fun things. Again, just about at the end of May, beginning of June, somebody approached me and says, I think you ought to run for city council. And I gave it a little bit of thought, so that's about how quick it is for me. I've been in the middle of a move. I'm moving from, I'd say the center of Kaysville, Main Street and Mutton Hollow, but the north end, moved down to the west side, Shepherd Lane. So that just finished that move. So I'm a little bit out of sorts today, but I'm glad to be here. I think the things I bring are unique, like I said, is my training as an accountant. I work with people all the time. I deal with difficult situations. I try to help things move forward. That's what's important to me. I appreciate what other people have said about the long-term strategy that I feel Kaysville needs. Let's make it. Let's make it happen so we can focus on where we want to be in the future. I grew up in the Uinta Basin. That tells you a little bit about me. I went to high school there in Vernal. I love farming and I love cows. So it just tells you some of my bias. And I love bees. So, and my involvement with the city council, I work with the Boy Scouts. And I'm the Merit Badge Council for Citizenship in the Community. So what brings me to the city council is those scouts. Coming here to help them and get involved and having them go up to the mic and say you can make comments on issues. But I'm here just to offer myself just as a public servant to you to do the best I can to help Kaysville continue to be a great place. Thank you.
My name is Randy Von Bosi. I am also running for city council, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity. My husband and I moved into the area about 3 years ago. He has been doing his medical training in Texas, so we have not been here in Utah. I was born in Utah down in North Salt Lake. And when it came time to pick a place to settle our family, he's working up in Ogden, but I wanted to be down here in Davis County, and Kaysville felt like the right place, mostly for our children, which I will talk about a little bit later, but including our kids and their needs in our schools and their safety is one of my big focuses that I hope that can be brought more to the forefront. I do have 4 kids. My oldest is 11 and my youngest is 4. I was telling someone earlier he just learned how to dress himself, so I have a little bit of my life back, and I guess it goes to the city now, so you're welcome. I have a degree in psychology from the University of Texas at Arlington. And I have loved government since I was a kid. I remember when I was in 5th grade, we took a field trip down to the Capitol building, and it was the most magnificent place I had ever, oh my gosh, I shouldn't do that already, but it was the most magnificent place I had ever been. And I knew that there were great things that happened through government. I have kept involved with national government and local government throughout my life. When we moved here, I wanted a chance to get involved, so I got involved in my kids' school with the community council there, and I served for 2 years as the community council chair. And then after this last election cycle, I really felt like I needed to be more involved in the city, and so I began attending city council meetings, and I didn't do it with the intent of running for city council, but the more meetings I sat through, the more evident it became to me that there is a divide, and there is rhetoric that is causing our city to fracture. And my training and my background has prepared me to bridge that communication gap. That is my hope, that is my main goal. Like I said, I also have a goal with schools. I think that all of the schools are functioning on their own, and when we need something, we come to the city and we try and fight for it. But I think it would work a lot better if we could take the heads of all of our community councils, of all of the schools, and have one meeting and make a list. What are the priorities? And then come to the city and say, this is our city's safety priorities. This is what we need to do. And that is one thing that I really would like to focus on. Thank you.
Hope you don't mind if I stand. My name's Susan Lee. I am crazy enough to be running again for city council, and I say that because as you put yourself out there in front of the citizens of this community, you put yourself up there to make decisions with people on both sides of the issue. And so no matter what you do, no matter what you decide, there's always going to be somebody who's not happy with you. And so with that being said, I really appreciate those who are willing to put themselves out there. A little bit about myself. I was born and I was raised here in Kaysville. And most of my life I've lived here in Kaysville. I've raised 4 sons, and they are all darts, yes. And I am so grateful for the community that we live in, the service that so many people provide each and every day, and to be able to see it firsthand as somebody who is on the council. The reason that I have chosen to run again is because through the last 4 years that I have been on the council, or 3.5 right now, there's been many goals that I have set out that I would like to see accomplished. And several of those goals, if you get a minute before you leave, I've listed them on my table there that have been accomplished, and there are still more things that I would like to accomplish. The things that are really a big focus right now is getting the roads repaired. I know, I drive on them, they're to be, they're not the best in a lot of the places, but we're working on it. It is something that's difficult to do. You have to step up and you have to make these decisions every time you come to the council, and I'm willing to continue to do that. And I thank you all once again for coming this night.
All right, thank you. We made it through our first question. Great job. Second question is again going to be for 2 minutes, and start with Lorene Kamalu. And the question is concerning UDOT's proposal for the West Davis corridor, or what should happen on 89. How can the city work to ensure that Kaysville's interests are considered and property values are preserved? And you could answer to both 89 and the Western corridor, or one or the other. And we'll start with Lorene.
Sounds great. I know a lot about this. I am in the middle of a Master's of Public Administration degree, which I never planned to go beyond my undergrad in business. But because of the public service, I felt very strongly that I wanted to be the best public servant that I could be. And so I'm at the U. I have a year under my belt, 1 more year to go in this Master's of Public Administration. So I studied roads in February. It was part of our policy analysis course, and I chose to study Kaysville road maintenance as a policy problem. And it brought out the civil engineer in me, which I didn't know that I had either. And so I have been watching this, as all of us citizens have been watching these proposals. The one for the West Davis corridor has been finalized, and now it's just going to be implemented. And last night, door to door, a family invited me in and asked me about that one. That one goes off of the Kaysville border, and the connection to Kaysville will be along 200 North. Out on that end, there will be an interchange. So that will be the connection to the West Corridor and Kaysville. When we worked on the general plan as a planning commission, we did an update that only happens once every several years to update the general plan of our city. And I was the one who brought up on the commission, we need to be thinking about the road changes and how we're going to have a connection between 3 different highways. Also on 89, I've spent a bunch of time so far in my door-to-door on 89, because what can happen there can really be very different for Kaysville. So a couple of weeks ago, I met with the project manager. A lot of you were at the open house for Highway 89, and we need to definitely be watching that for Kaysville's interests. Property values, we just need to watch and be involved as citizens. And if every community does that, then hopefully they'll come up with some good options for us.
In my former opportunity to serve on council, I was actually our community's transportation guru, as it were. I went to all the, I was on the Transportation Advisory Board, and I also served on the the Denver region Council of Governments. And so I worked a lot with regional leaders to try and get what is the best plan for our area. So when we're talking about the West Davis Corridor and Highway 89, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make Kaysville's voice matter in these decisions, and to do that you need to engage. A lot of people here have participated in the open house to do with the 89, and also I think the West Davis Corridor is, we have a real opportunity with that, because I believe we need some more commercial here in Kaysville in order to help offset our property taxes, and there will be the opportunity to have some commercial around that area, and we need to zone it really well. What do we want that to feel like? What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to include? Do we want it just to be a bunch of fast food restaurants, or do we want something better than that? And I think if we take the time to plan this out, we can have a really nice area where we can get some more tax revenue and be able to increase people's property values because they're close to this center. Will never be, it's not going to be a Farmington station, it's not going to be anything like Layton Hill Malls, it'll be uniquely Kaysville. And I think we really have an opportunity to make something great there.
Home with me, literally. I grew up right by where the 89 expansion is happening. My parents still live there. I'm very interested in that, and I learned a lot at the open house a few weeks ago, and I've actually been in contact with the UDOT's community outreach representative and asking a lot of questions. And I currently live right by where the West Davis corridor will go in, right off of 2nd North. So both of these are huge impacts and something that I want to make sure our city council and government is very involved in the future. As far as property values, I agree. This is an opportunity to make sure, if done well, it can protect and even increase our property values. I'm also very sympathetic to people whose lives change. We know about lives changing and your home that you bought and built changing its experience because of transportation that comes around you. But if done properly, it can enhance your life and enhance your values. With the US 89 expansion there, what we need to remember is that the whole project is beyond just Crestwood and Mutton Hollow. It affects the north and the south, and I'm impressed that UDOT put out several different options. I've also pressed them pretty hard to explain how each option coordinates one with another and how things like our active transportation plan will be taken into account. Will we have bike lanes on it? Will we have frontage roads that are accessible to citizens who live on the east and west side of 89? On the West Davis corridor, this project we've known about for a really long time. It's finally, the plan is approved, and when you look at it, Kaysville is sitting on probably the best opportunity of all of the cities that are involved in it. We have the most room for growth down there. We have the most opportunity to capitalize on a great experience. It's in my back door, but I'm excited to make sure what goes in benefits myself, benefits my community, and is safe for our children who are going to go to school right by there.
Wow. Amen. Isn't that good stuff? This is good stuff, and I hope, I drive to work every day, and I wish I could bike to work every day. I came from Albuquerque prior to coming here, and it was nice to ride 10 miles into work and 10 miles out on a nice bike path where I felt safe and only had to cross a major street 3 times. Now, that tells you a little bit about some of my loves. I'm not an avid biker. It was just fun to do. But I appreciate what's already been said, and I absolutely agree with a lot of it. We have some unique opportunities. Road rage is a problem right now, and it comes from grumpy commutes. Is that right? And you think, I want to just get home and be at the place I love. And when we're thoughtful about that, but even at a visit with people today, why do you love the west side? Why do you love some of the open spaces on the east side? Because they're open. It's what we enjoy. And we do have an opportunity to be thoughtful, but we need to move quick so it just doesn't happen to us and we're left behind. So just think about some of those things. It's a neat opportunity. I have to admit, I'm looking forward to the West Corridor because it'll make getting home for a lot of people a little bit more comfortable. And if it's planned right, it won't be an eyesore, but it can also bring in revenue. And I think this is a nice time for us to unify as a city, to join together, make it known what's important to us, and go after it. And that's just what I think in a lot of different ways. There is some, I don't know if that's a call to everyone else. I'm for definitely pushing these things forward, helping them out, making them happen, and being a part of it. And to keep Kaysville, just like I said, a great place. But I agree with that too. There's great revenue opportunities. We all love the benefit that these resources bring. So let's take advantage of them, but do them in the right way. Thank you.
I'm going to take a minute and just focus on 89 because I know that that's an area that a lot of the citizens right now have concerns about. In my time attending City Council, I've seen UDOT come and do a presentation on what their tentative plans are for 89, and then there's been the open house recently. I will be honest and tell you that the feeling that I got was that UDOT, while they're taking information in, they also have very set ideals of what they want. And UDOT does not have an oversight committee. That was one question I specifically asked during the UDOT meeting was, who are you accountable to? And they are accountable to their UDOT manager, but that is it. Really, ultimately, the people who have control over UDOT are going to be our state representatives. In running, one of my views of my role as a city council person will be to lobby for the city. My job will be to be in contact with those people representing us on a state level and making sure that they know what the needs of our citizens are and passing that down, because they're the ones who will have control over UDOT. They are the ones who hold those purse strings. We as a city can gather together, and I think that is absolutely needed and absolutely wonderful. But in order to really affect change, we have to take it to the next level, and that is what I would like my role to be. I only want to do what the bulk of the citizens want. My big goal in running right now is to gather a group of people through email who I can communicate with on a regular basis, to send out surveys, or to even just send out updates on what's going on in the city, to get feedback so that I know where the city is, and then I can effectively lobby for you. Thank you.
You know, it was over 8 years ago, my first foray into getting involved was fighting for a sound wall on the east side of the freeway down by the Hess Farms area all the way to 2nd North. That time was a time where I started to recognize how much work it takes to get something done. And we were able to accomplish it. We were able to come together and do it because of citizen involvement, and also because we had a mayor and a council that supported what we wanted done. It is very important, like Randy said, to also keep in great communication with your state representatives, because they do hold the power of the purse. But they don't listen to you as well if you don't have a good representative on the council who is willing to go to bat for those needs. And with the Highway 89, with that expansion, without a doubt, it's needed. I don't know how many of you actually travel to and from on Highway 89, but it's frustrating because the traffic is very, very slow, and bumper to bumper, those peak hours, it's hard to get through, and it's frustrating. And then as far as the North Davis corridor and down that direction, that will directly affect me because I live down the very west end of Kaysville. And I will be able to actually see that highway or freeway. It's going to be a full-blown freeway down there. It's not going to be like Legacy Highway where they won't allow semis on it. It will be a full-blown freeway. And one of the things I'm very familiar with is sound walls. I will go to bat for the citizens of this community, whether it be up on Highway 89 or down by the North Davis corridor, to make sure that we have as much privacy and protection from this growth. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting. As I look at it, change most of the time either happens to you or through you. I think that UDOT has a budget and has a plan. They're going to build these roads, they're going to make these expansions. And I think that to some extent, the expansion is very important because the roads are getting crowded and they're getting difficult to travel. I think the two projects are very, very different in circumstances. Obviously, the West Davis corridor, it's been planned, it's confirmed, we know exactly where it's going. So what we're going to have to do is get very creative with the way we zone that to protect property values of the landowners that are out there. As we look about commercial services that might end up out there, we've got to be very careful and communicate very well. Kaysville's going to have to get very, very good at communicating, not just broadcast out, but soliciting your feedback. If you're in an area that's affected by a project, we can't just hope that you're going to come in. We need to we need to get very good at letting you know what's happening and soliciting your feedback back. We don't have a really fantastic mechanism for that aside from an email. Hopefully we can get a lot better than that. I would like to lead some better options there. So we're going to have to get creative with the zoning on the West Davis corridor. Now, up on 89, the interesting thing about that is not locked in. We have options. We can be an advocate for a better change that serves Kaysville very well up there. I think that some of the issues that are up there is can we reduce speed limits? Can we make it some way to make it so that is not a trucking route by petitioning UDOT to finish the crossover that goes out from Morgan over to I-15 directly, so we're not sending trucks straight down I-15 or straight down 89. I think that it's important that we look at this from a big picture, logistically look at how that's going to affect us and the types and speeds of traffic that are going to come on there. And then in the end, like I said, it's not really locked in. You are going to need somebody to represent you who can be a good advocate, a good negotiator, somebody that can go with UDOT and our state representatives and really communicate what the impact will be for you. And I think that as you're looking for somebody to vote for, it's very important that you look for somebody who can be your best advocate. Whether they completely agree with you or not, somebody that will take your message to the decision makers, whether it's in the city or at UDOT or the state or anywhere else. Look for someone who can be your very best advocate. Thank you.
We have got great attendance tonight, so if you have an empty chair, if you'd raise your hand, we can let some people that are standing in the back have a seat, so just let them know. Okay, we're going to stick on the topic of roads, but we're going to talk about city roads more this time, and it's going to be a 1-minute round, which is faster. The roads are a major concern in Kaysville, and are you in favor of any recently discussed solutions, such as bonding a road fee to raise additional revenue? And what are the city road priorities for you? And we're starting with Katie Witt this time.
All right. I don't think we have any options as far as whether or not we're going to bond. We're going to need to bond. We are also probably going to need to have a road impact fee. We've just gotten to the point where the roads are in such a state that we need to take strong measures in order to address them. Now, moving forward, I think we need to do a better job maintaining them, because roads are like laundry and dishes, they always need to be done. So we need to have a set-aside funding mechanism just for our roads. I would like to see us be able to, one way or another, I am not bought into one single way to do it, but we need to have that money set aside right off the top before we talk about anything else. We got to set aside this X amount of dollars, whatever it's going to, we'll find that out during our strategic plan, how much money we need to set aside every year in order to keep those roads up the way they're supposed to be, because it saves us money in the long run. So as far as, I think we need to look at the LTAP report that came out last year as to, and in fact, Public Works has already listed which roads need to be done first. I say we follow that recommendation and keep to that schedule. We're going to need to spend about $10 million over the next 6 years in order to get our roads up to adequate again. And then after that, we need to have a plan in place. So in the next 4 years, we need to have something in place to start saving the money that we need in order to keep our roads up the way they need to be.
Roads are probably going to hit closest home for almost every Kaysville citizen. It doesn't take very long to drive on them, especially to have one of your children walking or commuting on them to know they're really important. I've often driven around Kaysville and noticed our sidewalks that don't continue, that start one place and have not been enforced. We haven't had developers that have been held to the wire to enforce, finish the sidewalk like we planned, finish the plan like we have. Kaysville is probably going to have a second name of where the sidewalks continually end and don't continue. We need to take care of that. We need to pay for this. And I agree, we're in a situation right now where we need money to fix the problem and we need it fast. The way we're going to do that is through bonds. Let's get that into place. Let's make these changes, but let's make sure we're not in this problem in the future. What could have happened in the past is we needed a vision. We needed to know these roads are going to need improvement. They need an active transportation plan that will grow with the community so I can bike where I want to, my children can bike where they want to, and we have a way to pay for it. It's not out of an emergency fund. It's out of a planned fund that every citizen is aware of and they know where that money is going. It's going to the roads that every one of us use.
This is, when I think about roads, I just moved from Mutton Hollow, so that's my number one, I'm kidding. You know, the road next to you is the one you care about the most, but it is. I mean, if you ever try to turn from Mutton Hollow onto Main Street between 5 and 7 o'clock at night, good luck. You know what the needs are, and we do need to get after them. I'm an accountant by trade. How are you going to pay for them? You either raise more revenue or you cut something else and borrow from there. So what do you want to do? I just love, again, the one thing I have to say, I'm just impressed with all the candidates. I hope you are too. It's good to have good choices. And when I think about that, though, we have to decide, as a community, what we want and get after it fast. We can't leave our city and the city roads in the disrepair they're in. And again, bike around with me. We'll go on a ride. If you haven't hit the bumps lately, you'll feel them firsthand. But think about how we're going to do it. And I know some of you, whenever you think bond, it's scary because that's something to the future. But if we plan right, whatever the mechanism we go after, think of the services you want to cut so you don't have to bond or get after it. We need to decide together, but it needs to be done.
As we have been delving into this issue, Public Works has come and spoken to City Council, as well as LTAP coming and doing a report on the situation of where our roads are. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, it was in April. It's online. You can find the whole LTAP report. You can find video of it at the City Council meeting. It's very good to watch that so you understand the full situation. My takeaway from it is we are where we are because we had to build a bridge. We grew too fast. We had to have a bridge. We bonded for the bridge, and then a bond is basically a loan. So our loan repayment came out of our roads fund. And so our roads didn't get the needed maintenance because we were paying back our bridge. To me, that's a concern. And as we look at bonding in the future, I think that we do need bonding. I think having a large amount of money up front will minimize the damage that's done over the long term and cost us less in the long term. But I think we have to go into it with a very clear vision of how we're going to pay for it without dipping into our funds to keep the roads up.
So this last year, as you've heard, the council had a company come in and go through the entire city and rate every single road. And that report is what we're going to use to proceed in what direction to put priorities on the roads, which roads that we need to go ahead and do some improvements on, some roads that we need to do the gravel that everyone loves, and that will prolong the integrity of the road. Another thing that we're going to be doing, which is going to help with the longevity of the roads, is we're going to make sure that as we improve the roads, as we go through the city, that we put in the curb and gutters. The curb and gutters are so crucial because it holds that road together, it maintains the longevity of it so that they last longer, so the work that we do doesn't go to waste. And that's what it's all about, is making sure that we do as much with as little as possible.
I recently had the chance to speak to a colleague who runs the road department in a municipality that's about 55,000, a little bit bigger than us. I showed him our road inventory, and I showed him our public works and labor budget, our roads and public works labor budget, and he laughed at me and said, well, I wouldn't take the job. We're in a tough spot. We're in an especially tough spot with roads, and we are going to need to have to figure out how to get some more revenue. I've combed through the budget. During our last budget session, I combed through everything, and I thought I was finding some great places where we could make some cuts. But as I really looked at our needs for roads and the LTAP report and everything that we know, we could cut our entire operating budget and not pay for the maintenance we need to get back in front of the road maintenance, to keep our roads in working order. I think I'm certainly in favor of several of the options that have been discussed by the City Council. I think it takes a lot more investigation to find out which one is the lowest cost over time, whether it's bonding and paid for by a fee. In particular, though, what I want to make sure is that any new revenue, whether it's a tax or a fee, that it doesn't go into the general fund that can later be spent on something that didn't justify it. Whatever new revenue comes in, I want to make sure is spent exactly on what justified it to the residents of Kaysville.
So, how to handle the Kaysville road maintenance issue? First of all, the city just did a communication in their newsletter. I hope you read it. That was very helpful because they're starting to communicate to citizens so that we can be aware and we can share feedback and input to the council. Communication is very important to citizens so they're not blindsided by things and then wonder why they didn't get to provide input. I'm going to do a master's research project at the end of my degree. It's already started. How do Kaysville citizens prefer to receive city information? And I'm excited to learn that so that we can do a better reach out so that you know what's going on and you can provide input. I studied the LTAP report as part of my policy analysis. And there's no question that maintenance is cheaper than repair. So there needs to be a treatment starting on roads even when they are new, 3 years out, every 3 years there's a treatment so that roads can last as long as possible. And one city that's done something that we can learn from, because they're 2 or 3 years in, is Provo, with a specific fee that goes only to roads, so it's very transparent and it's used by the city for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with Michelle, and this question is about affordable housing. It's a 2-minute question. So Kaysville doesn't have a lot of affordable housing, and most of it is concentrated in one area of the community. Would you like to see more affordable housing projects in the city? Do you have a specific area you think would work best? And how would it impact the current usage for that area? How do you protect that as well?
This is an interesting question because Kaysville has grown really fast recently. We've all felt it. And Kaysville actually has a maximum capacity limit that we have. I've been looking into that and learning quite a bit about it. We'll approach that quite fast. So what the little area we have left for growth, we have to have a lot of strategy with. Our affordable housing is a very small market of our population here in Kaysville, smaller as it comes. The biggest area for growth is in West Kaysville. That's where I live, that's where growth has exploded. And I believe that if we are going to offer or have availability to affordable housing, we need to have a plan of where it goes, how it's developed, and how it's maintained. We've had lots of developers that have come into Kaysville and almost taken advantage of our good intentions and our good assumptions of developers. They leave things undone, and the zoning doesn't quite accommodate for everything that we need. So I think what Kaysville needs to do is we need to sit down with our master plan and zone for housing, zone for what that looks like as far as is it high density, low density, and it continues on, and how far and what developers cannot come in, they can't develop until they meet our standards within our Kaysville city bounds. West Kaysville is probably the very best place to offer that. It's also the place that has the most impact with our commercial and opportunity to grow our tax base this way. So I would say we need to work with development and commercial together and pair them both together in West Kaysville. That's where the growth could happen.
So maybe this is a little near and dear to me because where I just moved from was just north of the Francis Peak Apartments, if you know where that area is. It creates, maybe that's low-income housing, I don't know what you want to call it, low-income apartments. But affordable housing is a problem for a lot of people. You think about what makes people are attracted to good cities. It just drives up property values. The demand is there, and the demand is, if you want to sell a house right now, I can get it sold for you. I'm not a realtor, but you guys know how that affects. But I also think about the opportunities. Again, it needs to be carefully planned when we're thinking about this. Everybody thinks, I don't want affordable housing close to me. There's no other nicer way to say it. We say that, but you have to think about what are we as a community. Do we love people? Do we want to serve them? I miss the area I just moved from because of the opportunities it gives me to serve and love people. And that is just something, you might think, oh, this guy's hokey and he's running for a city council position. Whatever. But, there's some unique opportunities. I agree with what's said. We need to think about where it's going to be best, open our hearts, open it to people. Some of it's just, again, the nature of it. We're making this a great city. People want to get here. So I don't know what to tell you. Do we make it a less desirable city and that'll drive people away? That's not what we want. But being careful about how we do it, where we're going to put it, plan things out. And again, maybe I'm thinking low-income housing. Sorry, that's what goes through my mind. But it really is affordable. We need people here to love, to serve, to help, and help them get to a better position. That's the Kaysville I know, the Kaysville I like to be a part of. And I hope we can do that. Thanks.
When I first moved here 3 years ago, my husband and I were able to buy a home that was the original home on basically a ranch. It was situated so that the owner who built it could look out at his roping arena and live his dream every day. But as Kaysville began developing, the demand for land became great and he sold his land. And so my whole neighborhood behind me is built on the land that originally belonged to the home that I live in. As we moved in, a new piece of land, a piece of farmland that was attached to our neighborhood but hadn't been previously sold, was being sold. And there were developers that were coming in and wanting to develop it under I know all these codes. There's a lot of codes. Lorraine knows them all. But they wanted to develop it under a code that made it so they didn't have to be half-acre lots. And the neighborhood was upset about that because it does affect your neighborhood. It affects how you live. And I think a lot of us are in that position where we bought a house hoping that we would have our little piece of heaven. And nobody wants to see that taken away. But at the same time, there are many, many people here in Kaysville that would not be here if that land was not developed in the first place. And I think that, I'm going to caveat this, I think growth is important, but I think we need to keep up with the roads before we keep building. But I think that having that affordable housing come into our city could be a great boon for our community. It could open up our doors, it could open up our eyes, and help us be a little more understanding of the world around us, and I do think that that would be a good thing. I think as we've talked about the West Corridor, there is opportunity there. There is land that we could include into our plan to try and include some of this and to make our city a little bit more diverse and allow more people to have the experience that living in Kaysville is.
So the fact of the matter is, nobody wants affordable housing in their backyard. There's many reasons. I could tell you right now that the most crime Kaysville has in the city is in the affordable housing areas. For whatever reason, when you bring in that affordable housing, it brings in that element, and it's hard to deal with. And for those that are thinking about, I've got some land right by me and it's sold to a developer, and then the city decides, well, let's put affordable housing there. I guarantee you would come running into the city council and beg, please don't do it. We don't want it there. Does that mean we're heartless people? No, we're not heartless people. We still care about these people. We just need to figure out how can we make it work. I know there's some communities where they actually dot affordable housing throughout the community so it's not all lumped together. And by doing that, it makes it so that they're around people that are going to be more helpful to them and give them a better chance of being successful in the community. And that's what you need to do when you have people that are struggling to make ends meet. We have to reach out and help them as much as we can. Are we going to be able to do that in our community? Probably not. But it is something that we have to think about. And I hope when it comes to that, that we hear from you, because it's so important. It's your voice that matters. Thank you.
I get uncomfortable talking about affordable housing in terms of us versus them. I think that I adore the idea of welcoming more neighbors of different experiences, of different backgrounds, of any of that. I think that affordable housing gets in trouble when people try and relegate it to a specific area. You automatically create an other side of the tracks. And that's a preconceived notion before a single person moves in. I don't think it necessarily has to be a hotbed for whether it's crime or anything else. I don't like thinking about it in those terms. I would love to welcome more affordable housing in the city. I think I would like to make sure that it's dispersed throughout. I think that we have a lot of large developments going in, and I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe part of our city code saying that if you have a development of a certain size or a certain number of family home units, that maybe we could also require or encourage the developer somehow and make it economical for them to make some portion of those low income or more affordable housing. I think there's a lot of options there. We can do that without making it an us versus them argument. That is distasteful to me in the Kaysville that I know. The Kaysville, I've been the guy who had a hard time making his house payment early in my marriage, and I've made great friends in the rather dense apartment building right behind my house. So I hate the idea of thinking in that in an exclusive way. I think we can be open, I think we can be welcoming, and I think we can just make sure that we don't automatically relegate any low-income or affordable housing to a specific place, a specific area. I think we make sure it's dispersed, it's part of the community, and just enhances the fabric of Kaysville. I think there's a lot of options to be able to do that.
This is an area that the Planning Commission deals with a lot because zoning is a big part of how a city can hopefully grow in a good way. So we regularly have before us on the Planning Commission potential developments east of Highway I-15, and when those are multi-units, we have a lot of residents who come and say, why is all of this only allowed on our side of Kaysville? And there was, when we did an update to the general plan, the Planning Commission, because we've studied urban planning, and we go to conferences and we talk about good planning for cities to grow really well in a healthy way. We did recommend just a small change to the zoning west of the highway, but that particular council did not approve it. I too believe it's very important to have affordable housing. My husband and I were married and had 3 children before we moved to Kaysville and got our very first house. We were in Air Force Base housing, we were in duplexes, we were in apartments for years, and then we came and were able to get our first house in Kaysville and contribute to this community. I think it is very important to be affordable for young professionals and young families and to welcome them in.
I think that as when I'm thinking affordable housing, I'm thinking the house that my kids are going to be wanting to move into, right? So I have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 19-year-old, and I want them to stay in Kaysville. So therefore, it would be really good if there were houses around that my kids could move into. Now, there ain't nothing affordable on a half-acre lot. So that is why we have a lot of the more affordable housing on the east side, because we don't have that zoning restriction. So we're going to have to make a decision as a community, all right? Are we willing to let go of having half-acre lots, or are we willing to let go of that in order to have more affordable housing stock here in Kaysville? It's also something I'm really interested in, tiny houses. You know, if there's any way to work that into the plan, I would love that. No other community has a tiny house village, and you know, if it's young professionals or that's an option that we can look into. But it isn't fair to force, I don't like the ghettoization of one specific area of our community. But is it too late? Is it too late to decide that we want affordable housing both on the east and the west? That's something that we're going to have a discussion about.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is a 2-minute question as well, and it's about code enforcement. So would you like to see the city, A, take a hands-off approach where they respond to only those complaints that come in, or B, take a more stringent approach and seek out the violators throughout the city? And we're starting with James Hansen on this one.
This is tough, because I'm an auditor by nature, and I teach my students if you don't enforce laws, they don't get kept. You know where you can speed in this area. Is that true? And some of you are like, yeah, I know. There's no... I'll tell you, we need to have a little... No, just... But you love when, again, it's a tough call. Because I can think of my dear neighbors who water between the hours of 10 and 6. Not the right way. I love them. And I know their situation. You know, it's a tough balance. Again, do we want to be tattles on each other? One, it's just... So, I don't know. This is tough. But what I really think is, I think we need to find a happy balance. And one, the easiest way to do it is just walk over to your neighbors and tell them what they're doing wrong in a loving and kind way and help them out. And if we do those type of things, so I don't know if it needs to be hands off, but again, it comes back to us as the citizens to do that. Again, if you're not willing to, do we need to push enforcement or actively go out and seek? That might be an option. But it's really to keep our city the way it should be. And please don't look up on my old address and don't find my neighbors. They're sweet people, okay? They water during the wrong hours, I get it. But, you know, that is. We want to keep Kaysville the way we are. The best way to do it is just get involved as citizens and do the best we can. And help each other out and do it in a kind way. And I'll just leave it at that.
My family and I just drove back into town a couple hours ago. We were on a road trip to explore Northern California, and we went via Oregon. And as we went into our little town we were staying in Oregon, there were signs every 5 feet, like, here's what you can do in this part of town, and here's what you can't do, and yes, you can U-turn here, and no, you can't here. And it was so overwhelming to me, coming from Utah, where we are not that society. We are a society of trust. We are a community of trust. We want to know our neighbors. We want to be friends with our neighbors. And that is why we don't need signs every 5 feet telling us what to do, because we do have those relationships. I don't think that strict code enforcement fits with our community. I don't think that that is what the community ultimately wants. That being said, there are times when we cannot resolve things neighbor to neighbor and friend to friend. And just in this last council meeting, maybe 2 council meetings ago, it was asked about code enforcement and how is it done. And right now, the only time code enforcement happens is when a citizen calls in and asks for code enforcement to be done. I have no problem with that system, but I think the citizens need to know that if there is something lingering, if there is a problem in your backyard that you can't resolve, that's when the city is there to step in. And as long as the citizens know that and are willing to take that on, I think that keeping our city kind of without the signs every 5 feet is a great idea.
So if you live in Texas, a lot of areas in Texas, there is no zoning, there is no codes. If you build a house, there's a chance that a gas station could be built next door to you. And the best way they got around having that problem is they started HOAs. And an HOA guaranteed that a home would be built to your home and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Well, in Utah, in our community, we've decided that we're going to have codes, we're going to have zoning, so that when you move somewhere, you can expect that a home will be built to you, by you. Or if you build a home right next to a general commercial area, you know that a store could be built next to you. But with that being said, as a community, if that is what we have, and those are the codes, and that's what we expect the citizens to live by, they should be enforced. And what I find as a member of the council is when the city is not able to enforce, and a lot of times I do not believe that they do it on purpose. It's a big city. Unless somebody calls in and tells them that there is a problem with somebody not living by the standards of the community in that area, then that is helpful, and that needs to be done, and people shouldn't be afraid to do it. But it is nice if the city is able to catch something, or if they know something. They try to work with people that are not in code and not being in, or that are out of violation anyway, that are in violation, excuse me. They try their hardest to work with the people because sometimes people don't realize it. And if they do realize it, they give them a time frame. Okay, we're going to give you this long to get back into compliance. That's the way it should be. We should try and work with our citizens, but we also should expect them to live by our codes.
I got to echo James. This is a tough one. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the way we do code enforcement now. It's based on the citizens spot something that may be outside of our code, and so they complain about it, and the code enforcement then acts on it, or gives people an opportunity to come into compliance before we take any big action. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but I can also see how we don't expect our citizens necessarily to do a lot of other monitoring and let the city know. So I can see merit of having a code enforcement officer. On the other hand, again, I can think of a million things in the city I'd love to pay for than a full-time code enforcement officer. So I think that as I really look at this critically, I go, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the way we do code enforcement now. I think that there is something necessarily wrong with the way we communicate. I think there's a lot of people who don't know who to go to if there's a problem with their neighbors, anything. They don't necessarily know where to go to find out if it's even against the rules. And I think it's about the city, again, getting better at communication, new channels, new ways to search for things, new ways to get a hold of the city, if there's, whether that's a tip line or whether that's some way to submit it online. In particular, I think that it's about communication. I think it's about communication with your neighbor, and then once you've made a complaint or once you have an issue with zoning or some activity that's going on in the city that's affecting you, I think good communication once action has been taken back to you from the city. Because I think that's something that maybe doesn't happen, even though our folks do the best they can to take care of every complaint and address every issue that comes in. They are very stretched, and I don't think we have a good mechanism to communicate back if we've taken action or why we haven't if we haven't. And I would like to see that improvement made if we do stay with the current code enforcement mechanism.
The position in our city staff right now that deals with a lot of enforcement is community development. That person is also the only planner who's on staff that I'm aware of here in Kaysville, and also is supporting local businesses, working on those things. And so our government, our full-time staff, they wear a lot of hats. I believe this is very purposeful in the evolution of Kaysville as we've grown, that Kaysville wants small government. So there is kind of a trade-off. There's often policy trade-offs. And so we have a small government in Kaysville as far as how we are staffed full-time for the size of the city that we are now, and we are continuing to grow. He says that if everyone tried to police themselves and kindly went to neighbors when there were small issues, that would really make his job easier, save him time. He could do more important things than that. And I will say, though, that as I've been going around in the city in all the different neighborhoods, I have people who will point this or that out and say, now, just so you know, I want you to be aware of this going on right here. And there are some construction projects that do never end among neighbors, and it gets very hard for them. So I'm kind of guessing the next thing I would love to research is a little bit of what exactly is it that happens in our housing, in our building department, so that there are some guidelines that will protect neighbors from things that just are big problems very close to them. That's hard.
Something that is directly correlated is freedom and responsibility. So if you want to maximize the amount of freedom that you have personally, your responsibility goes up equally. And I believe that if you have a problem with your neighbor, you should try to work it out with your neighbor first, because that's the right way to handle things. I've seen it where, and not here in Kaysville, but the disgruntled neighbor uses city government as a harassment tool for a neighbor that they don't like. So we really need to emphasize how important it is for neighbors to work together, and maybe we need to work on having good neighborhood groups. Maybe we don't have HOAs everywhere, but maybe we need to have neighborhood groups that would be able to help be an intermediary level between neighborhoods and city government. That might be an interesting thing to look at as far as self-regulating those issues. And maybe you have a discussion together as a neighborhood saying, you know what, we don't like it when we have big piles of logs in front of people's streets, houses for 2 weeks at a time, and you need to take care of that, or we can help you. So I think we need to emphasize citizen responsibility first, and then involvement by the city as a last resort. That's how I would want it to be handled if it were me.
This is a tough one. To me, code enforcement comes down to two things. It comes down to communication and consistency. So as a resident, in my experience in code enforcement, when you try to escalate to the city, I've never been responded with, actually, here are some measures that you can take. This is the protocol. Have you done these things? If not, we'll escalate for you. That's where communication would be really wonderful. The second thing is it's hard to find these codes that need to be enforced as a resident. It's really hard to find it. The technologist in me is saying, we can get that information available online fast. Tonight, we could get it out there. We could get it search engine optimized. So I get online and I say, what's the code for noise regulation in Kaysville City? And within a minute on my smartphone, I know the answer to that. So when I go talk to my neighbor, we can have a conversation that's backed up by our city. And we just saved our city council member or our city staff a phone call and actually walking out there. We're solving it on our own. Hopefully in that same communication that we put out there, we've said, if you have looked at what the codes currently are, and you've talked to the person you are afraid is infringing on those codes, you've gone through this process and you still have not made a resolution, here are the things you can do. Hopefully a phone call to a city staff is the last thing. There are other ways that we can more efficiently use their time. Hopefully you've taken a picture with your smartphone, you've documented, you have a paper trail, electronic trail of all of the times you've documented your communications, and now I'm empowered when I actually have to get to either the city staff level, or hopefully not, but the city council level. I have all of that information, and we've both been working towards this goal together. And the second part is consistency. It's really difficult as a city if you enforce a code one way this week and another way the second week. That's difficult as a resident. I've been in that position. Consistency comes from communication and that information being available to everyone. Now it's easier for me as a city to enforce.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is a 1-minute question, and we'll start with Randy Van Bosse. And it is regarding your role. As the mayor, you are the only elected official who doesn't normally vote on policy. What can you do as mayor to affect real change in the city? And as a city council person, you are one of 5 votes on a legislative policy body. How do you affect change? And for all of you, how do you improve the civility of city council meetings?
This is a great question. I think it's on the minds of a lot of people sitting here. I think it's a lot of the reason why a lot of you are here, because you have seen this not happening in our city. I've had lengthy discussions with a lot of people about this, and there are many voices in our city, and there are voices that are important. We have concerned citizens who have a voice that is important, and they have concerns that they want to bring up. We have homeowners that have voices that want to be brought up. But when those voices come out in rude behaviors, then the voice is lessened. And I firmly believe that in the city council, our job is to find out the opinion of the majority, and then we are to lobby with the other council people to assert our position. But at the end of the day, it comes down to 5 votes. And if it's 3 against 2, that's the way the chips fall, and that is the way government works. And that is something we have to be able to accept and move forward and be able to talk to each other about. Without it, reverting to rudeness.
I appreciate this question. I know firsthand it's not easy being on the city council, and especially when you have somebody that can be more of a challenge. But with that being said, I love diversity. I'm grateful for it. I think that as a council, it's stronger if you have varying opinions and varying perspectives that you can listen to. And a lot of times, I have shown up thinking one way, and then listening to other perspectives that have been brought out, I recognize and I realize there's more that I didn't realize, and I was grateful for it, and it was very helpful. I think as a member of the City Council, you always need to come with an open mind. Your voices need to be heard when you come, and that's what I will do.
I think the role of the mayor here in Kaysville in particular, and I don't mean to oversimplify because it's varied and it's nuanced, but I think in very large part, the role of the mayor here is a communicator and a facilitator. I think someone who is well-intentioned but maybe not experienced in facilitating resolutions to disagreements, I'm afraid we're going to have a lot more problems, very similar to what we faced already. We have a lot of opportunity to improve communication both within the City Council, in the council chambers during the meeting, and outside, and effectively improve the way we treat each other a lot. I would really like to see someone in the mayor's chair, hopefully me, obviously. I would really like to see somebody in the mayor's chair that isn't well-intentioned, but very well-practiced at facilitating very difficult situations, handling distractions of just about any kind. And I would like to make sure, again, like I said in my opening statement, that the city business doesn't get overshadowed by a lot of those personal problems and those personal back and forth issues that we faced quite a lot recently.
This is my favorite question. So, Kaysville has not a strong mayor. It's a part-time mayor, paid very little because it is truly a public service position. The mayor on our council does not vote. The mayor leads. The mayor is a leader. The mayor influences. Great leaders have influence. Great leaders are kind. Great leaders are collaborative. Great leaders are respected. Great leaders are knowledgeable. Great leaders can do a lot of good even when they don't have a vote. I am very excited about the possibility of being able to lead Kaysville. I have prepared to lead Kaysville and tried to learn all that I can so that I would be ready. Parliamentary procedure change is very much needed on our council, and it's probably going to have to become more strict, both for the council and also for the audience. It's gotten a little bit crazy for the last year or two, and that doesn't have to be that way. It can change, and I think a change will be good for Kaysville. I have working relationships with everyone on that council, and everyone needs to be treated fairly and similarly. That's how I want to lead our council.
I think the role of mayor, although not a voting position, you are in a position to help things go right. And we really need to work on making sure our processes are fair, transparent, and that we continue to build trust with our community. We might disagree with the outcome of a decision, but we should not disagree that the process was not fair. So the mayor has a lot of ability, responsibility in order to make sure process is right and making sure things go right. Now, as I said, served on a city council before. I lived Robert's Rules of Order. I think it is beneficial to our community at this time to go with a more strict Robert's Rules of Order. I will not try and control individual council members. That's not my role, but I will control the meeting. And that's all that we can really ask. We really do need to have lots of voices, but in the right time, in the right way.
I'm actually going to turn and address my answer to the people that I believe are live streaming this event and that may view it later on, because more often than not, that's my position. That's how I've been involved in city as of late, and that's what I like to see. That's our involvement of the future. It's wonderful if you can come sit here in person, but it's great if you can be involved otherwise. We live in a virtual world. I work in the virtual world every single day. I'm excited to see the role of the mayor to set the stage for not only the city council meetings, but for the government as a whole, how we run. I look to the mayor to keep everyone on track with our vision. The city council, when I'm telling people about my campaign and that I'm running, I tell them, don't look to me as your leader, I'm your representative. I will go there and represent you, whether you're in person with me there or you're watching and live streaming and communicating with me outside, which is what I hope that we do. I hope that you know that as sitting on that city council, it will not be my first time sitting in a heated meeting or my first time using parliamentary procedure to get my things that I want voiced through in the most effective, well-communicated, and fair way.
I told you I work with the Scouts on citizenship in the community, and if they don't like the way things are going, we say, what should we do with government? And we talk about one thing you always need to do is be civil. If you don't like what's going on, elect new leaders. Get involved and get the leaders there that you want to have to make the changes you need. We do need diverse opinions on the city council. That's important. I love what's been said about we represent you. But I didn't say this, I have 8 kids, and they keep me busy. And I don't have time for all-night city council meetings, unless it needs to be. I'll listen to everybody from the community. But I think as we get back to more civil meetings, not being argumentative, because arguing for just the sake of doing that isn't an efficient meeting, and it doesn't help the city move forward. More is done when we keep a civil tongue, share our opinions, take those opinions, work together to make things happen. And that's what's important, and that's the city council I want to be involved in.
Okay, another great job. This is your final question. You have 1 minute. If there's anything you wanted to tell us that we didn't hear yet, let's highlight that. And also tell us why we should vote for you. And we're going to start with Susan Lee.
Thank you once again for caring enough to be here tonight. Last time I ran, I have to say it was a little bit more difficult. I had 2 sons get married. We moved. I had a son graduate, a son go on a mission, and then I campaigned. So this time I only had 1 wedding and a son returning from a mission, so this is a breeze. But with that being said, I have to tell you, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Kaysville. The kindness and the service attitude that comes out in the people as I talk to you and as I listen, I understand that we are a unique community, and that is what makes us so great. That's why so many people want to come here and live here. And I hope that you will consider allowing me the opportunity to continue to serve you. Thank you.
Something I'd like to see happen here in Kaysville is some core values, or at least some training and muscle memory that speak to the core values I think are very important for Kaysville. I'd like to introduce at every level of our government and appointed and elected officials something I call the 4 keys for Kaysville. I want to make sure that that these 4 keys are used as a crucible to really refine the questions we're asking, the moves we make to make sure that they're in the best interest of Kaysville. Safety, honesty, efficiency, and identity. Making sure that every move we make is as safe as it can be. Are we truly being honest and transparent in every way? Are we being as efficient as we can possibly be? And are we paying the correct respect to the identity that we, the residents of Kaysville, identify with and want to project to the community? As I look at these 4 keys, what I would like to make sure happens is when we reach these areas that are question marks, we're not sure which move to make, that we have something to fall back on, some guideposts to fall back on, to make sure that as we measure it against these 4 keys, we can be sure that the decisions we make in the end, if we can satisfy all 4 of those keys, we know that the move we're going to make is the right one for Kaysville. Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight. I really look forward to this, being able to meet more of you and to be able to share more about me and answer questions. I have prepared to lead. That is what my sign says. I've done a lot to prepare to lead in Kaysville because I have found a passion in public service. And after 20 years of being successful in business, I want to turn my attention to public service and to the citizens of Kaysville. I am a very good listener. I will listen to everyone. I will go and visit your properties. I will sit around and visit and do fun things in the community with you. These are the things I've already been doing. I have been obviously getting the degree and trying to get as much input from all of you. I have a public service line set up in my home where you can call my home. I will have office hours as a mayor, and I intend to continue the good curve that we are on to do increasing communication out to the citizens of Kaysville so that everyone knows what's going on in their city and people can give input and feedback, and we can go in the direction that our citizens want us to go. I would love to be your mayor.
Over the past 2 years, I've been to probably more city council meetings than at least one of the city council members. I go to every event. I do something called Kaysville Condensed. So I go and I summarize what happened at city council. Public service is something that I do naturally. I'm already leading. I think that you don't have to be an elected official in order to lead. I currently serve as the first female Rotary president here in Kaysville. Very honored to have that opportunity. And I'm really excited about having a strategic plan for our community. It is so important. And I think that so many good ideas here we can incorporate into a strategic plan. It is crucial. Even if I'm not the mayor, please, let's push for a strategic plan so that we can get Kaysville where we want it to be in 10 years, 20 years, so that our kids can come back and have their grandkids come back.
What a wonderful evening. I am honored to be up here with such great candidates and for the spirit that's reminding me why we love Kaysville. We are the face of Kaysville. We are united in our dedication. I think I speak to everyone when I say the political climate of our nation the past few years has changed every single one of us. It changed me, and it made me more aware. And I realized, for as excited as we get on that national level, we need to put our energy where it counts, here locally. And as you can see on my website, michelleforkaysville.com, my tagline is Be the Change. There were so many things I wanted to see done in Kaysville. I was so passionate about what was happening and frustrated with the vision and image that we have going out there, and I wanted someone to change it. And guess what? I looked in the mirror and decided it's got to be me. If it's going to be somebody, you need to be the change you want to see. Whether you're elected as an official or you're a resident, you're all here tonight because you're part of the change. Elected or not, I can commit to you that I will continue to be the change for Kaysville. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us out. I too, like these candidates said, I'm excited about the candidates that are up here tonight. They have a good vision. I hope too that I agree with what's been said about strategy. I hope you're thinking about, and as the citizens we get involved with what we want Kaysville to be. I'm a farmer from rural Utah. I love West Kaysville to be farms. I'd love it to stay that way. It might not. We're facing the realities. But let's have it be the Kaysville we've envisioned. Let's work towards it. And I just want to represent you and make the things you want to see happen, the good things happen. One thing, I know I've talked a lot of love and feel-good joy, but I'm a professor. I deal with hard things. I deal with cheating students. I'm okay with doing the hard things when they need to be done if it'll help our community be a better place. And again, I just look forward to representing you. Thanks for having me tonight.
I'm going to take a page out of Susan's book so that she's not the only one standing, because she did a great job at that. As I have jumped into this process, the one thing that keeps coming to my mind and has kind of become my mantra is that effective communication and education lead to successful government. And I think that there is room for improvement in that in Kaysville. I think we have come leaps and bounds over the last few years. I think there is definitely room for improvement. One thing that is important to me is getting the citizens involved. I think it's easy to close our doors and to just expect the city to take care of us, but city functions best when the citizens are involved. I have a webpage. It's randyvonbosi.com. And on it, I've started a blog. I am writing about the issues that are important to our city. There are a lot of topics we didn't cover here tonight. If you want to know my position on other things, feel free to go and read through that, or there's a place there to leave, to contact me, and I'd love to answer any other questions you have. Additionally, I really do want to start a group of citizens who want to get information up front. I have a pad over there. If you want to write down your name and your email address over the coming months, I'm hoping to grow that so that when there comes time where I need feedback, that I can easily get that. Thank you.
Okay, you've had a great evening, I hope, of listening to some really amazing citizens who are willing to serve you. Let's give them a round of applause. We are done for the evening, though I'm sure our candidates will be around if you want to talk to them. And don't forget, if you're going to make any changes or need to register, August 7th is the cutoff date for registering for the primary. Thank you, everyone.